Hello, welcome everybody. What day is it? Monday? Happy Monday. It's good to see you all here. What is up? All about that Logos. Good to see you. Praise the Lord. Indeed, indeed. Welcome, welcome. I hope you guys are all doing well. Cheers. Hope you're having a good day. Got some tea with me right here, and I've got another pot steeping right now. All right, I'm very, very excited. Let me turn down the music a little bit. I haven't preached out of Hebrews in months now. And I believe if I understand my... Let's see, if I understand my roadmap correctly, this upcoming Sunday, Lord willing, I preach about David. That would be pretty cool. Let's look. Yes. So I'm off by 1 week because I didn't realize our presentation from our missionaries. So I need to push everything 1 week, which is fine. That's kind of why I left gaps here. So this goes here. And the cool thing is I'm going to get to preach on David this upcoming Sunday, Lord willing. Pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'm just excited to dig into this topic. You could probably preach 30 sermons on David and only really be scratching the surface. His life is so ubiquitous, such an important Old Testament figure, and obviously hinting at the New Testament Jesus as well. So I'm really, really excited to dig in this one. What up, Cavell? Man, there's so much to talk about with David, you'll have to be really intentional. Nailed it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So we'll see exactly where we end up with it. But yes, I'm going to have to be very, very intentional and focus only on a specific aspect of his life, because otherwise it'll get out of control quick. So, and I'll just put missionary update here. So, this upcoming Sunday, Lord willing, I preach about David. And I wasn't sure. I'll sort it out with him. These might be swapped. I might preach about Samuel next week, or I might preach the following week about Samuel after Paul takes a go. So we'll see, but we're roughly where we need to be in terms of our understanding. So, want to do a little research, and I just want to dig into, like, does Warren Gage have anything on David? No, he doesn't. He has essays in biblical theology, where it says it gives a hit for David. Let's see. David right there. So maybe he has like an essay on David? But there's so many different ways we could go. Right here, a centripetal dynamic of the house of David, a typology of tragedy. Okay, that might be interesting. So we can start with that. There's plenty we can go into, right? I think I finally got James Hamilton in my Logos proper. Yes, I have it digitally now. Does he talk about David? Surely he talks about David. Yeah, so we can talk about broad Adamic dominion. Seems to be where he goes with part of this, and then narrows it in. There's going to be many, many options here. Where do we want to go? Hello, my journey. Good to see you. Welcome. How are you? Yes. Hi. I hope you're doing well. Happy Monday. It's really good to see you. All right, that tea's probably ready. In fact, it's so ready, it's spilling water on my precious book. So I'm going to have to... It's not very much, but I'm going to have to put down like an absorbent cloth. I've got one of these microfibers here that'll work well. And then maybe next when I steep these leaves, I'll do it off to the side. So we can see entries in typology. We can see entries there. I mean, let's just type. Let's look for David in like a biblical theology, right? There's going to be too many hits like this, but if we look in like a biblical theology book, we might find a focus on David. No use crying over spilt tea. Not a big problem. What kind of tea tonight? Let me see. I believe I've had these leaves sitting here for a minute. Let me see. Yeah, I believe this is yeah, that's definitely what this is. This is kind of a gunpowder green tea, but it's not jade snail. It's this guy, Sleeping Dragon. Sleeping Dragon green tea from Adagio. Really, really good green tea. Big fan. Big fan. Hello, Jaxel. What is up? Quick question. Did you go to school or anything for biblical education? Thank you. I'm currently in process of getting my Master's of Divinity out of Reformed Theological Seminary in Orlando, Florida. I've been getting that degree for about a decade. I'm supposed to walk this May, so I only have a handful of classes left before I graduate. Yes, yummy indeed. Big fan of Chinese green teas, and this is a good one. It's like a gunpowder green, but it's got a little bit more nuance. It's called Sleeping Dragon. Yeah, good question, Jaxel. I hope that helps. I'm eagerly looking forward to graduating with my Master's of Divinity and being done with this degree so I can just move on to the next iteration in my life, whatever that might be. Let's type biblical in here. So David and biblical, it's still too many hits. Biblical theology. Let's type. And let's go with biblical theology in addition to David. Let's see if that gets any hits. Ooh, we're narrowing down. Let's try this. And, okay. So, yeah. I'm not finding anything specific. Now, instead of type biblical theology, I want to do like new studies biblical. Because these books, see, they're titled as monographs, okay? So that wouldn't get a hit. These new studies in biblical theology. So let's try this. Possessed by God, a New Testament theology of sanctification and holiness. That's not it. Benjamin Allen, what is up? It's good to see you. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing? Happy Monday. Hope you're doing well. All right, Cavell, I would be tempted to show the whole picture of David with his rise and fall, but that is basically asking to summarize 1 to 2 Samuel in one sermon, which might be too much. I'm actually somewhat leaning in the direction you're talking about, Cavell, because I've actually done this before in the past, where I give a big overarching picture of the individual figure, and I go through all of the major events in their lives. So you're actually not that far off. I think I could maybe do it. I don't think it would be too much to do it. Just the question is, you know, how would we go about it? But I have done something like that in the past. It was easier in Judges, but I could probably do it with David as well. So I'm tempted in the same direction, Cavell. We'll see where we go. Jaxel, where would you say you got most of your biblical knowledge? Did the Logos app help? Wow. Most of my biblical knowledge. That's a good question. Honestly, probably listening to a lot of online sermons, podcasts, lectures, that sort of thing. I think that's where I got the vast majority of my biblical knowledge, Jaxel. I have done a lot of reading, but it's only been in the last 2 to 3 years. Before that, I was not much of a reader at all, and I've been getting my degree out of my seminary for about 10 years, and I was a Christian before that, studying on my own. So I watched a lot of videos and on YouTube or on other platforms, or got DVDs for listening to lectures or sermon series, those sorts of things. So I think it can absolutely be done to get a lot of biblical knowledge that way. Just have to be discerning about your sources, because there's a lot out there. Yeah, good question. The Logos app did help. I find mobile ed courses to be really helpful. I enjoy them a lot. And then once I started investing heavily in Logos itself, it helped so much in just digging through information and data, mining information and resources, all that type of stuff. So, yeah. All right, Benjamin Allen, I'm reading through New Studies in Biblical Theology. Decent series. That's awesome. I mean, I know biblical theology is a big deal these days, but I think for good reason. There's a lot going on there that we can glean from. So, yeah, that's great. Cool. All right. Benjamin, go into typology hardcore. You better, PT. That's right. You know it's going to get typological. I just don't know in what direction. You know what I mean? That's awesome. Jaxel, I found out about you just like 30 minutes ago explaining 2 Samuel 21:19. I loved how you explained it. Well, thank you, Jaxel. That's awesome. Thanks for the encouragement. I appreciate you very much. Yeah, God bless you. Awesome. Well, I hope you find something of interest on the channel. And then, of course, if you have any questions here while we're live, feel free to ask them. I really like to interact with viewers, so that's what I do here. Jack, so I would love if you could give your life testimony in a video. I'm 22 and I'm trying to learn as much as the Bible as possible. Nice. Yeah, I think I did give my testimony at one point. Man, I'm trying to remember. I think I do have my testimony on here, but it might be private. I may not have shared it publicly. I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure. I'll give it to you in brief. I was not born in a Christian family, not raised in a Christian home, nothing like that. And in college, well, first of all, I was a false convert. Here, let's go to the big screen just for a minute or two. Cal Magic. Hi there. Please provide an ID to verify who you are. That's awesome. What's up, Cal Magic? It's good to see you, my man. Yes. And Benjamin, I'll get to your comment here in a second. I just want to answer Jaxel's question. I was actually a false convert in high school. In high school, I started going to a church because some of my friends went to this church. And so I thought, that's fine. I wasn't violently opposed to Christianity, but I was kind of like agnostic, atheistic myself. So I probably considered myself an atheist at the time, but I wasn't like super dogmatic about it or rude about it. And I started going to church because I had some friends who were going to this church. And then they announced one Sunday, hey, we're going to have somebody come speak about the topic of Mormonism. And I actually have family members in Mormonism, and I myself was baptized Mormon at the age of 8. But a lot of my family didn't go. We were kind of Jack Mormon, if you will. We only participated here and there, not very much. And so I had left that early on. Well, when the individual came to speak about his background coming out of Mormonism, I felt like I really resonated with him. Even though a lot of his experiences weren't quite the same as mine, again, I just still felt like I really resonated with him. So after he gave his presentation, I asked my friends, I said, man, I'd like to become Christian. Could you teach me how to do that? And they said, oh, just pray this prayer after me. And it was the sinner's prayer type of thing. And I literally afterwards, I'm 95% sure I literally said, is that it? And they said, yep, that's it. You're a Christian now. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That was easy, And then I proceeded to continue to live in sin. Didn't have any repentance, nothing like that. And I got into college and, my wife, then girlfriend, was concerned. She was like, why don't you want to go to university and go to a Bible study? Why don't you want to go to church? I didn't want to do any Christian things. And it's because I hadn't been born again. I hadn't been changed. And so, she tried desperately to get me to do devotionals with her and stuff, and I wouldn't do them. And finally, it wasn't until my sophomore year, after she actually had to go back home. So we were doing a distance relationship at that time. In my sophomore year, I had a coworker that I was working alongside, and he was a Christian. And I thought I was a Christian, but I really wasn't. But I had some questions for him, right? So I was a false convert at the time. And I started asking him questions, and he gave me some materials on young earth creationism. So he gave me Kent Hovind, And I also found Ken Ham on my own and Living Waters Ministries with Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron, etc. And so I started watching all those resources, and I became convicted that I'd never really been born again. And then I found Paul Washer's Shocking Youth Message on YouTube. And I realized, wow, I truly need to repent of my sins and put my faith in Jesus. And so that's what I did. I then proceeded to truly repent of my sins, put my faith in Jesus. And I was so hungry to study the Bible after that. Like, I was super passionate about it. I was going to like many Bible studies each week, and I'd spend all my free time reading the Bible and praying. And that happened in college. And so that's kind of my background, my testimony. So yeah, thanks for asking. I hope that's helpful, Jack. So there's obviously more that could go into that, but that's kind of like the high level. I know that wasn't terribly short, but that's kind of the high level overview of what happened, how God changed my life. Yeah, good question. All right, let's see. Benjamin, you could look like at Genesis 3:15 with the serpent motif, then Goliath wearing snake armor. Ooh, yeah, let's look at that. So let's go Genesis 3:15 and Goliath and the armor. Okay, very worthwhile to look into. Cool. My journey says, nothing to do with your current study, but quick question. I recently listened to a pastor who believes in 7 raptures. Thoughts in a video would be awesome. Oh, man. Honestly, with my public content here on YouTube, I try not to touch the rapture with a 10-foot pole. It's just it's so polarizing and tribalizing, my journey. I wouldn't be absolutely opposed to it, but it's the sort of topic I don't delve into publicly very often, because I have other areas of emphasis in my ministry on here, and getting into tribalistic fights over your standard Christian, divisive points is not what I want to be doing on a regular basis. Shoot me a message or leave a message on a comment on one of my videos and link me to the video you're talking about. And maybe what I can do is I can look at it and treat it in brief, like in a live stream like this, where I can just answer the question, or I could maybe even make a private video and I could message it to you or something. But yeah, that's not something I'm actively engaging in very often. Yeah, 7 raptures. I mean, I haven't heard that one before, so that's pretty unique. Ooh, Brian Verrett, the book, The Serpent in Samuel, Messianic Motif. Thank you for dropping that hint on me. Let's duplicate this, and let's see if we have this one. I feel like somebody has told me about this book before. I think it was Cal Magic. No. I'm just gonna take this down as a note. Oh, and I didn't think you were, my journey. I didn't think you were at all trying to create mischief. I think you're genuinely just looking for answers and help and encouragement in trying to understand the controversy or the background, etc. But here's the deal, end time stuff is really complicated, and a lot of people are very passionate about their opinion, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So no, I don't think you're trying to create mischief at all. I think you just genuinely want answers, but it's just one of those topics that people tribalize along those lines very, very quickly and easily. And I'll just give you an example, my journey. I had somebody leave a comment they were leaving comments on a bunch of my videos each day for like 2 or 3 days. And it was clear they were binging my channel. And then they left me a public comment on one of the videos that said, what's your opinion on the Calvinism versus Arminianism debate? And I said, hey, I have videos publicly defending the Calvinist position, but I don't like to put a lot of emphasis on it. That's basically what I said, right? It was about as neutral as I felt like I could get, while just still being honest about, where I stand personally with it. But here's the thing. I genuinely don't care that much about the Calvinism versus Arminianism debate, but a lot of people do really care about it, and they build their whole channel around that question, Well, after I left that comment, the individual wrote back to me and they said Calvinism is a heresy from the devil. You need to understand this, etc. And they stopped watching all my content. And I don't, to me, it's not about the views, but part of the reason I do what I'm doing here on YouTube is I think that I have something meaningful to say to help people in their spiritual walk and their spiritual journey. And I kind of felt bad that, my videos on that topic caused them to just leave altogether. And basically, I'm not going to participate then because you're on the wrong side of a debate that I'm very passionate about. You see what I mean? So, and here's where I'm going with this. The issue on eschatology for many people is the same thing. And if I put a public video out saying there's not 7 raptures or there are 7 raptures or whatever, again, people would quickly line up along tribalistic lines and fight one way or the other about it. And I could alienate viewers when in reality, it's not an issue that I'm super passionate about anyway. You see what I mean? Now, I do sympathize with somebody like yourself who just wants answers. You're just like, hey, this is weird. I don't understand. Can you help me out? I would love to help you out. You see what I mean? But I don't want to put an unnecessarily stumbling block in front of others when it's not a topic that I'm super passionate about to begin with. Because I want people to come here, learn how to use Logos, learn about some of the other things that we have in our community, and not give them a reason to just abandon what we're doing here because I happen to publicly say something that they disagree with. You see what I mean? So the other thing is you can't make everyone happy, right? So on the other hand, I'm like, who cares? That's part of me too. It's like, who cares? People are going to tribalize. It's the nature of the beast. It's human nature in many ways. So part of me does also say, who cares? Let me just help out one of our supporters and consistent viewers who loves what we're doing, right? So I'm of two minds. You see what I mean? My journey. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, shoot me a message. Send me a link at very least to the video, and I'll see what I can do with it, okay? I understand you're not trying to cause trouble, but you just got to tread lightly in some of these areas. You know what I mean? So, cool. All right. All right, Cal Magic. Yep, I've talked about it before. I knew I heard that book title before. Thank you, Cal Magic. I appreciate that. God has hidden the details about the second coming just like he did prior to the first. I think that's a helpful take, Cal Magic. At least we have some history to back, up the opinion or ideas from that perspective, right? Cal Magic says, John Fallahee has a lot of material teaching how to study with Logos software. Yes, that's learnlogos.com. And I've utilized John Fallahee's material in the past when I was first learning the software. Found him a good, affordable solution for Logos training. So yeah, thanks for that, Cal Magic. All right. Let's see. Want to catch back up? Jaxel says, I'm so hungry to learn as much as possible, right? It's kind of overwhelming how much there is to learn. God willing, I'll obtain much wisdom and use it for the Lord in any way that he wants. That's awesome, Jaxel. Honestly, you sound like I did when I first got saved. So keep digging in, right? There's so much good material out there. Just be discerning about who you listen to, because there can be a lot of material out there that'll just be confusing at first. Okay, so do want to say that. Let's see. Jaxel says, I'm Hispanic. I know both English and Spanish. I think I could be very effective if I learned a lot. I'm actually getting ready for Bible school right now. That's awesome, Jaxel. Cool. Praise God. Praise God. All right, Benjamin, where are you on the ethics paper on suicide? I want to read it. Benjamin, are you on our Discord? DM me on Discord and I'll send it to you. I'm done with it and I got my grade. I got like a 93 out of 100, so I was pretty pleased with it. Yeah, find some way to get a hold of me, Benjamin, and I'll send you the paper because I did finish it. All right, continuing. All about Logos. Will you do ever Logos training videos more in depth? Yes, I'm planning to. I want to do more in-depth trainings. It's hard to think of a systematic way to approach it, right? And what to jump into. I do have, if you look on the channel, I do have some Logos training videos, but only highlights, right? I don't have a lot of in-depth stuff, but I do want to get to in-depth stuff at some point. All about the Logos. I wish I knew what Calvinism even was. It's a debate amongst Christians over how we get saved, right? Calvinists essentially say God does all the saving, And Arminians say, well, it's a combination between God and man, how man gets saved, right? So there's a lot of controversies within it, but that's the big picture. Let's see. Benjamin says, oh, geesh, I'm not a Calvinist, but I will defend that you are a brother. People like that are crazy. Yeah, these things happen. These things happen. Cool, Benjamin. I'll shoot you a copy of it after the stream. Let me open my... Let's see. Message requests. Accept DM. Boom. Perfect. Yep. And I will shoot it to you after the stream. All right. Also... A mature Christian will understand we might not agree on everything, but there's still so much we can learn from each other. Agree with that 1,000,000%. Yep. I still enjoy watching you and love your content. Love Logos. That's awesome. Thank you so much, My Journey. I really do appreciate that. Okay. Yeah, no problem, Jaxel. I understand that. I will say that one of the things that was most influential on me when it comes to this topic is, I bring up this book all the time, but Paradox in Christian Theology by James Anderson. Such an influential book on me. And he talks explicitly about the Calvinism, Arminianism debates. I often think that these debates boil down to people struggle to hold these ideas in tension. Not that we're significantly differing from each other when it comes to at least the broad ideas, right? Esoteric Alchemistic. Hello, I like your username. Hi, this is my first time here. Hope all is well. Yes, all is well with me. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for swinging by the channel. How are you? And where does your username come from? I really like that username. All right, let's see. Okay, Benjamin, isn't that regarding prophetic? I may be biased. I'm charismatic. I like that we have a wide variety of viewers here. This is awesome. Very encouraging. So what's your topic? Well, My Journey, we are digging into the topic of David, okay? We're digging into the topic of David, and I specifically want to get into the typology of David. So might want to read this little chapter from Warren Gage, The Centripetal Dynamic of the House of David, a Typology of Tragedy. Okay, that might be pretty intriguing. So considering digging into this one. This looks like hot fire. He's building all of the important biblical events and how they coordinate with David. Okay, so this could be very, very helpful. So this essay is going to be very important for us. And then I also looked up David in James Hamilton's typology book. Typology, Understanding the Bible's Promise-Shaped Patterns, How Old Testament Expectations Are Fulfilled in Christ. I bought this one in print, and then I had to get it in Logos as well. What's up, Theocratic? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. And so that's what we're digging into here, is typology and really looking into the topic of David, right? So I don't know if he does have kings here, kings, events, institutions. So the closest we probably will get, well, let's see, prophets, priests. Yeah. So he breaks it down into your typical pattern of prophet, priest, king. And yeah, so under kings, I'm sure we'll find David throughout. But this one looks like it's going to be easier. So if I'm going to reference one typological book, right now it's looking like it's going to be this chapter in Warren Gage. So that's what we're digging into. Yeah. All right, Jaxel. Paul and Peter had disagreements, but yet they still loved and respected each other. I like to think it's because above all, we should maintain ourselves holy for God. Yeah, I like that a lot. Thanks for sharing that, Jaxel. And that's just it, And so we want to be, we want to be honest about the truth and hey, theology matters. It's not that it doesn't, but there's a lot out there that's challenging the church from multiple directions, and I think it behooves us in general, where possible, to recognize we're on the same team and to support one another and encourage one another. So, yeah. Benjamin, yes, I was just going to mention Hamilton's book. So good. Yeah, I really like it. Hamilton's book was essential for me when I was preaching through the typology of, I forget the figure, but there was a figure that I went through, and I utilized Hamilton's book extensively. So yeah, very, very helpful. All right. Prosser, Logos has the monthly free book about David by Boda. She started reading it this week, finding it interesting. Ooh, I hadn't seen that one. I'm sure I just automatically downloaded it, right? I go get the free book every time, but I don't think I actually opened it, right? That's an embarrassment of riches. You know, you get used to all this, and then sometimes you don't even go search what you have. Oh, I didn't need caps lock on. Was it this one, After God's Own Heart? The Gospel According to David? That's pretty cool. I like this series. We had to read this series in one of my classes, but for a different book. Cool. Thanks, Prosser. I appreciate it. Had it already? LOL. That's funny. Yeah. Cool. Well, this one will be a good resource as well. I want to start with Gage. There's a lot of intriguing information here in Gage, and Gage gets to the point. He doesn't blather on about inane things that don't move the needle. All right. So I really like reading Gage for that reason. This is a little discordant to me. I'm going to skip it. Could have been good, but a little discordant. All right. Theocratic says there's a church a couple hours from here called St. Nicholas's Church in Leicester, thinking to launch a one-man crusade against it from me. You should look up it and find out why. Oh, dear. All right, Theocratic. I'm going to type it into Google right now on my other screen, and I will look it up. Okay, I will look it up. But this is the sort of rabbit trail that could completely derail the stream. So I'm putting it over here, and I'll look it up after the stream. Okay, very intriguing. Very intriguing. All right, I got it up on the other screen. Thanks, Theocratic. Appreciate it. All right, what do we have over here? Benjamin, if you were to start a channel on biblical theology, how would you do it? LOL, hint, I'm trying to do that now for myself. One of the most important things about a YouTube channel, and this is something I only recently discovered, one of the most important things for a YouTube channel is to focus, narrow focus. You can't go too big or too broad, okay? You need to narrowly hone in on one specific topic. And so biblical theology would be a perfect topic. So you could just call it, biblical theology, or so-and-so, Benjamin's studies in biblical theology, or something like that. But the idea is you want to narrowly focus your attention, because that plays into your favor when it comes to the algorithm. And then you just start posting, okay? And every post, every video needs to narrowly hit that same topic, so that the viewers who follow you and subscribe to you are going to like almost every video that you point out. That's really going to help you when it comes to your channel. And yeah, you're going to have low views at first. That's all there is to it. Took us 2 to 3 years to build up this channel and we're not even a large size, right? We're still fairly small, but my videos are active in the algorithm now. And when I post a video, it usually gets, a couple hundred views or something like that. And, but it took years to get to that point. So you just got to faithfully pick one single area of focus and then faithfully post over and over and over again. I saw here out of the corner of my eye, Jaxel's got to take off. So I just want to read through their comments before they go. Hope to attend Bible school. I'll finish the live later. I'm glad I found your channel today. Definitely will subscribe. Thank you, Jaxel. That's awesome. Would cool if one day we meet and my biblical level's around your level. We just discuss and talk everything Bible. Man, you find the right brother or sister. You can talk a long time. We had one of our missionaries come out, and he and I chatted for 3 hours, pretty much nonstop, about theology. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, that'd be cool, Jaxel. God bless you, everyone in chat. Thanks for answering. Wasn't expecting a response. I'll be waiting for the full testimony video. Nice. Take it easy, okay? Have a good one. God bless you. Take care. All right. Heading back into here. Cavell, maybe the message should be focused on specific moments of David's faith because of the context of the chapter. That can obviously relate to typology, though. Absolutely. And I want everyone to know why am I even talking about David? This would actually be helpful because I haven't looked at Hebrews in a little bit. So if we just pull up the ESV and go check out Hebrews 11, this will give us a sense of what we even want to talk about when it comes to David, okay? Because I'm preaching through the Hall of Fame of faith. All right, here's our verse. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 32. What more shall I say? Time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, and of David, Samuel, and the prophets. Okay, so it's that David drop right there that we're utilizing. So it really is open season, right? Whatever we want to preach on, we can, because it's just referencing David as a person. Okay. So yeah, we just need to figure out what we want to preach on. And I'm sure Warren Gage will give us some, food for thought, right? My Journey says, you're doing an awesome job on your channel. Thank you so much, My Journey. I appreciate that. It took us a while to figure out what we wanted this channel to be. If you go back into some of the older videos, there's some of me live streaming, me playing video games. I have old videos of me doing that. There's some videos of me just answering one-off questions. I have videos of me doing that. There's videos of me focusing on specific theology, etc. But the ones that really took off the most are our videos on Logos. And hey, I love the software. It's helped me so much. So yeah, we've kind of become a Logos Bible software focused channel. So the live streams are centered around Logos. I think sermon prepping with Logos ties in really well with what we're doing with the rest of the channel. And I try to do product reviews of books that help me in Logos, maybe how to utilize a specific product. And, we try to cover features. We do buying guides. And so it's really a Logos-centric channel at this point. And I couldn't be more pleased with that. We'll branch out in the future. But I did realize, a lot of my personal thoughts and ideas about theology are just not as much what people want to see. So no problem. We'll showcase the software and focus in on it. And I just enjoy hanging out with you guys and interacting with you. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like how it's going. I would like to stream a little more often. My ideal would be, 2 to 3 times a week. And I'd like to get 2 to 3 regular video uploads as well. But, it's a busy season for us. I'm trying to graduate in May. So I've got a lot going on. I've got young children, so it's a season for us right now. And, we'll just do what we can. We're in it for the long haul. And that's all there is to it. So yeah, I appreciate that though, My Journey. That's very encouraging to me. What's up? Interstellar Synthesis. All right, cool. Says, as a seminary student who studies for fun even when not in school, would Logos 10 portfolio satisfy an unbiased curiosity of a variety of denominational historical approaches to Scripture? I also preach and teach. That's awesome, Interstellar. Man, I've got a lot of videos on this topic. So I'm going to give you a high-level overview of what I think is important here, but please dig into some of my other videos if you want some more detail, okay? Now, these standard base packages are good, don't get me wrong, and this year they're probably better than ever. So you can be pretty solidly helped by buying a large standard base package. But, you're going to want to just look at some of the other base packages and see if they offer something that's a little more compelling to you. The other thing I would say, make sure you sign up for academic pricing, okay? If you're a seminary student, all you have to do is provide proof that you're currently enrolled in classes. And if you do that, you get a decent-sized discount on some of the base packages, some of the best discount you can get. That might make it to where, portfolio is either cheaper or you can even bump up to a higher level. So make sure you sign up for academic pricing. Very, very important. The next question I would ask for you is, do you know exactly what resources you want? Then if that's the case, you may not want to buy a big portfolio-based package. Or do you recognize the search feature in Logos and how powerful it is? This is why I've built a massive library in Logos, but here's why. I'll just show you right now. Okay, so we're teaching on David and typology, okay? If I just type David near type, and I'm just going to put a star because I want it to hit type, typology, typological, etc. David near type in all of my books, right? This is why I built a huge library in Logos Bible software. I have so many hints that I don't know if I would have had if I did not have such a large library. And then I can utilize each of these drop-down menus to narrow up. Okay, this is way too many hits. So let's just try typology. Let's see how many hits we get with that. Ooh, much fewer. Look. And now I might want to rule out the Bible commentaries. And so I can go through and figure out how to rule those out. So maybe instead of all books, I just, I type monograph here. Okay, so this is all of the monographs in my library that have David near the word typology. All right, this is still too many hits. Let's not go with near. Let's go with within 2 words. Typology. Look at that. Now I'm getting the few handfuls of books that are really going to be narrowing in on my idea. Okay, 40 questions about biblical theology. Boom. Questions like this. How should biblical theology approach typology? By Andrew David Naselli. Oh, okay. So that's not actually talking about King David. It's talking about David Naselli. Got it. Well, if I just look a little bit closer, right here, look at that. Right here, biblical interpretation of the early church. Okay. I would not have gone out of my way to go pull this book out of my library. I didn't even know I owned this book. I've never opened this book, at least as far as I remember. But it gave me a hit where the author says the typology of David as Christ is evidence only occasionally. Oh, okay. That's going to help me a ton in my study. You see what I mean? This is the reason to build a massive Logos library. And so if you want to do what I'm doing right here, then you're going to want to build the largest Logos library you can afford. That's typically how I put it. It's what I've done, and it's the recommendation I give to people. But it's only if you want to do what I'm doing right here. If you're not going to spend a lot of time utilizing the search function and trying to chase down ideas, then you may not need a portfolio-sized library. Maybe you just buy the Bible commentaries you like, you focus in on those, good to go. You see what I mean? So these are some of the things you need to think about. These are some of the things you need to think about. All right, Posser, some of your videos is what helped me to invest in Logos after Bible Words died. It had revolutionized everything in my reading and studies. Yeah, the same. Once I bought Logos Bible software, I write sermons so much faster than I ever did. I write papers for school so much faster than I ever did. I read faster than I ever did using a lot of their functions. It's really helped me in so many ways. It's a game changer. Logos is a game changer for sure. Prosser says, I also want to comment on the quality of your videos. Thank you for paying attention to the details of sound. Well, thank you so much, Prosser. I try my best, and I have a good team helping me and supporting me as well. But yeah, it's not always easy. It's not always easy. So I appreciate your comments along those lines. And I want to maintain, look, you can spend forever trying to edit videos to get the highest possible quality. Okay, that can absolutely happen. But in reality, there's diminishing returns there. And my approach is as high as reasonably achievable while also maintaining a good publishing schedule and, you know, life balance, if that makes sense. So I hope the quality is there where you like it, Prosser. And I think I've been not including the R in my pronunciation of your name. I apologize for that. But I like to keep the quality reasonably high without being ridiculous, right? So there you go. Interstellar Synthesis, I use the free version, pretty regularly. I've seen you navigate your library in previous videos. I just love the idea of having a massive database for personal and professional database research. And that's exactly how I use it. So you're going to want the largest library you can possibly afford. And what I would recommend then is sign up for academic pricing, look at the final price of all of the base packages, and see if portfolio is your highest tier you can go to. If it is, then watch my portfolio buying guide video to see some of the areas of emphasis and purchase the portfolio package that you think is right for you. If it is not what you want to do, then what you're going to want to do is maybe save up and get the base package above portfolio. Okay, but that's the encouragement I would give. And I want you to know, Interstellar, this is how I started with Logos. You know, I have a very large library now, but I've been building it over a decade. And I started out just buying, you know, I think it was Logos 5 at the time. I think I started with Logos 5 Diamond or something like that. And then I just kept adding over time. You know, I've invested a lot of money over the years in Logos, but to me, it's paid dividends because of what I just showed you I'm able to do, right? I loved the idea, just like you're talking about, of having a massive database of resources that I could search on the fly, just like this. So yeah, cool. Well, I hope that helps. Really, really good questions, Interstellar. All right, let's see. I want to catch up on the Twitch side. Cal Magic says, it's really cool that you have a lake adjacent to Leadville. You and Jess or the church use it much? No, Jess would love to, right? It's a really neat lake right outside of town there. And they used to do church on the beach down there where they would actually get together with other churches in town and they would go like have church on the beach, which is really cool. But haven't gone down there recently, although it is beautiful. And maybe this summer we'll get down there a little bit more. It's cold year round, even during the summer, which is nice during the summer. It's refreshing, but you know, that's the sort of thing, you know, you just got to be intentional about using it. So Theocratic says, that's insane. What's the filter to rule out heresy? Man, you got to use your brain for that. Okay. So that is one of the challenges. Sometimes there's heresy in there and you just got to know, wait a second, this doesn't sound right. So Theocratic, this would have been very useful when I was a student. It is very useful. It has made seminary so easy to dig into and to just focus on the material itself. Win Jennings, first time making it live. I feel blessed. LOL. Well, We're glad to see you win. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. I love to interact with the viewers, so give me a question in chat, and I'll do my best to answer and respond. I'm glad you're able to catch us live as well. Good to see you. Interstellar, love your stuff, man. Appreciate your reply. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. What an encouragement. What an encouragement you guys are to me. All right, let's go ahead and dig into Gage a little bit here and just see what he throws out. He says, the great fall of David's royal house began quite inconspicuously on an evening in springtime with a walk on the roof of the royal palace in Jerusalem. We're going to refer to Bathsheba. David the king arose from lying upon his bed, and while walking, he happened to see the wife of Uriah, who lived close to the royal palace. The woman was very beautiful, but she was another man's wife. Nonetheless, David sent for her, and she came to him. Notice the things that he puts in italics and bold. Okay, he's going to set these up as typological words that are being played off of each other as he goes to various points within the narrative. After she became pregnant by David, he summoned her husband back from battle, but Uriah refused the conquest of the king to go down to his house. So David wrote a letter concerning Uriah and sent it to Joab, the commander, over the siege of Rabbah. And he wrote in the letter saying, set Uriah in front of the battle, and he might be struck down that he might die. Thus Uriah was struck down outside the city, and he died. Then David took the wife of Uriah to himself. But what David did was evil in the eyes of the Lord, so the Lord sent his prophet to rebuke David and to charge him with killing Uriah and taking the possession of his wife. Then the prophet told David that God would judge his house, a judgment that caused David to fast and humble himself before the Lord. So again, you want to pay attention to the italics and the bold, because he's going to repeat these ideas. All right. This is kind of how Gage writes. David's sin against Uriah is similar to the sin of another king in Israel nearly 2 centuries later. The chronicler of the Kings borrows from the language and the pattern used in the account of David's sin to describe the wickedness of Ahab in the matter of Naboth's vineyard. Is this... skip. Sorry, that song, it distracted me. Okay, so he's going to take this same structure of what went down, and he's going to compare it now to Ahab's sin, okay? So again, let's look at this in terms of the language. David the king arose from lying upon his bed. He saw the wife of Uriah, who lived close to the royal palace. The woman was beautiful. She was another man's wife. She came to him after he sent for her. Uriah refused the rest of the king to go down to the house, wrote a letter concerning Uriah, set Uriah in front of the battle that he might die. Outside the city, took the wife of Uriah for himself, evil in the eyes of the Lord, sent his prophet to rebuke David, charged him with killing Uriah and taking possession of his wife. Then the prophet told David God would judge his house. David had to fast and humble himself. Now, let's look at a similar structure. The king of Samaria wanted the vineyard of Naboth, which was close to the royal palace. Naboth refused the request of the king to buy or exchange the property, stating that the vineyard was the inheritance of his father. So this is like Uriah refusing the request to go down to his wife. When Queen Jezebel came to him and found Ahab sulking in his bed, remember, David got out of his bed. Now Ahab is sulking in his bed. She rebuked him, reminding him that he was king over Israel and assuring him that she would secure the vineyard. And so Jezebel wrote letters concerning Naboth and sent them to the elders of the city. And she wrote in the letter saying, set Naboth at the head of the people and then stone him that he might die. Similar to how David dispatched Uriah. And they did so, and took Naboth outside the city and stoned him, and he died. Then Ahab rose from his bed and went down to take Naboth's vineyard to himself. But what he had done was evil in the eyes of the Lord, so the Lord sent his prophet to rebuke Ahab and to charge him with killing Naboth and taking possession of his vineyard. Similar story as Nathan. And the prophet told Ahab that God would judge his house, a judgment that caused Ahab to fast and humble himself before the Lord. This is why I love Warren Gage. I never would have thought of linking these two events. Very interesting. Very interesting. It is astonishing to see that the sin of David was recognized by the sacred chronicler as providing the prophetic pattern for interpreting the wickedness of Ahab and Jezebel. Gonna make some more green tea over here, guys. But there is still another pattern we should consider. Let's begin by viewing the familiar facts of David's sin from a slightly different angle in order to appreciate the multifarious nature of this sin in the matter of Uriah's wife and how it typifies yet another royal house that had received a prophetic rebuke. So, one aspect of this sermon we could put down, typology, we could go David / Bathsheba linked with Ahab / Jezebel. And one thing I'm already saying is that in the David and Bathsheba incident, David does all the wickedness. Whereas with Ahab and Jezebel, it's split between the two of them. That's a very intriguing idea. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see what Gage has to say. The story of David's sin is an account of royal adultery and murder. King David sent for and took the wife of Uriah after she became pregnant. David recalled her husband from battle and made a feast so that Uriah would eat and drink and be made drunk. But Uriah would not go down to his house. He swore an oath by the life of the king not to do so. So David sent a letter to have Uriah killed. Joab reported to the king that Uriah was dead and that the manner of his death recalled Abimelech and Thebez, who was killed by a woman crushing his head. But the Lord sent his prophet to remind the king of God's goodness in giving him the twofold kingdom of Israel and Judah, and to rebuke David for violating the commandment by taking another man's wife as his wife. The Gospels of Matthew and Mark likewise record an account of royal adultery and murder 1,000 years after David. I would never think to compare David to Herod. Really? King Herod sent and seized John the Baptist and put him in prison. He did this because John had told him that it was not lawful for him to have the wife of his brother. Now, during a great feast, Herod swore an oath and promised his wife's daughter to give her whatever she would want, up to half his kingdom. But she chose rather to have John killed, for her mother had wanted John's severed head to be given to her on a platter. So Herod sent word, and God's prophet was killed. So let's put this in as well. We've also got the David Bathsheba incident with the King Herod and Salome. The pattern of royal sin, prophetic rebuke, and divine judgment that we are observing from the books of 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, Matthew, and Mark suggests the possibility that we may move inductively towards an archetype of biblical tragedy. So good, man. Warren Gage. Yes, this is exactly what I want people to understand, thereby identifying a significant aspect of the contours of the biblical meta-narrative. This prospect is reinforced when we notice yet another feature of the pattern we have identified here embedded in the accounts of the tyrannical sins of David, Ahab, and Herod. The innocent victim of the crime of the king is, in each case, a type of Christ in his suffering in death. So Uriah is Christ, John the Baptist is Christ, and Naboth is Christ. It's a type antitype. Wow. All right. My journey says I have Logos 9 portfolio, but only upgraded to Logos 10 features. Is there anything new you would suggest from the current library? You mean, are you considering upgrading to Logos 10 portfolio? I just want to make sure I understand. You want to compare Logos 9 portfolio to Logos 10 portfolio? Uriah the Hittite was innocent, yet delivered over to death at the hands of the Gentiles by the betrayal of David, Israel's king. He was pierced by arrows outside the gate of the city. In all of this, we can see a type of Christ who was innocent, yet delivered over to Gentiles by the treachery of his own people, and who was pierced with a spear outside the gate of Jerusalem. My journey says yes. Oh, man. Let me open.
This is the biggest room
what's going on?
Of freaked out snowflakes you've ever seen in your life.
Verbost cheered. X200. Pastor, I want to support your stream today because you are a great man and I'm thankful that you're still here doing this, and I'm glad that I can talk to you any day of your stream. God bless.
Oh, God bless. Verbose, that's amazing. 200 bits from Verbose. Thank you so much for all that love and support. Really do appreciate you, Verbose. You're awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate all that love and encouragement. You did not have to do that, but I do appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic. All right, let me open my journey. I want to open my notes from when I did those videos. It's been a minute, so my mind might be fuzzy on it, but I should be able to get some good information on comparing the two portfolio packages. So look, I haven't opened these in 3 months. These are the notes if you want to peek behind the scenes, these are the notes I utilize when I record the videos. So let me go down to portfolio. Because in my videos, when I talk about existing users upgrading, that's the exact case I'm referring to. So let's see, platinum, 1 higher, diamond, 1 higher, portfolio, here it is. So I have 9 portfolio, but only upgraded to the Logos 10 features. So right here, standard portfolio, existing owners upgrading. Okay, here's what I'm going to say, my journey. I'm glad you asked. A big portion of the upgrade is coming from the complete biblical library. And these come over from word search with Gregory Lint. Okay, so, and I'll just show you it, complete biblical. So it's this whole series here. Some of them are translations of the Bible. Some of them are Bible commentaries, etc. If I just pull up one of the Bible commentaries, this is a Bible commentary on Exodus. Okay. And if I just go to a specific area, I mean, Exodus 20:18-21. Now, when all the people saw the thunder and the flashes of lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, the people were afraid and trembled. They stood far off and said to Moses, "You speak to us, we will listen, but do not let God speak to us lest we die." Moses said to the people, "Do not fear. God has come to test you, that the fear of him may be before you, that you may not sin." The people stood far off while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. Let's just read the commentary. A sense of awe and trepidation came over the congregation as they heard and witnessed the terrifying thunder and lightning and the loud trumpet blast that furnished the atmosphere for this interview with the Lord God Almighty. They were so intimidated they shrank back from his manifested presence on the holy mountain. "Please, Moses," they said, "you do the interviewing with God. We cannot possibly converse with the Almighty, nor escape his sore displeasure because of our sinfulness and wavering loyalty." The implication here is that only a holy man, one truly sold out to God, can avoid divine condemnation on account of the divided loyalty and feebleness of faith. From this, we may remind ourselves that only those who really love the Lord and put him first are going to be able to handle life and death issues in times of great crisis. We ought to pursue holiness rather than happiness when the storms of life threaten our safety and cast us upon the mercies of God. This was a lesson which Israel sorely needed to learn. So there you go. That's the quote. Now, here's what I would say. I would tell you right now that if you look at all of the commentaries in your Logos 9 portfolio library, you've got commentaries that do this or even better, okay? And so here's my point. The Word Biblical Library, the Complete Biblical Library, from Word Search, 39 volumes, being included in this base package is actually taking up a decent amount of value from the base package itself. And here's what I would say. I do not find the Complete Biblical Library to be worth it. If it's a good set if you don't already have other entry-level type commentaries, right? Then it's a good set. But you already have that because you have Logos 9 portfolio. And so I would actually tell you to hold off, because with the Complete Biblical Library being included, a lot of your value is being tied up with this. And I just don't find it to be worth it considering the offerings you already have. So I would hold off if I were you, my journey. Maybe purchase one-offs or look to not upgrade to standard portfolio, but maybe one of the other portfolio libraries. Okay, that's what I would consider. With your dynamic pricing, if you jump up on one of the other portfolio libraries, I think you're going to be well helped. I remember thinking Baptist was really good. Yeah. So, and if you're not Baptist, you may not want to do that one, but I put Baptist as my best buy for a portfolio upgrade. And then I also liked Messianic Jewish a lot as well. So maybe check some of those out. But I would not upgrade at the standard level. Good question, my journey. Good question. What's up, Cafecito? Yes, your streams, Pastor, are a great blessing. Amen. Thank you so much. I appreciate your guys' encouragement. It really does mean a lot to me. So thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. All right, let's keep going now with this typology between David and Bathsheba. Now, if we went this route, we would have to dive into a single typology, right? If I'm preaching on David as a whole and I just dive into David and Bathsheba and I compare it even to just Ahab and Jezebel, that's going to take almost all my time, right? Or you could do David and Bathsheba with King Herod and Salome, but that would take all my time. So if I pick this instance or this event, that's all we can do. But let's keep going and just see what he has to say. And he might flesh out these ideas a little bit more. And then it looks like he has other ones as well. David's sin in the 10 Commandments, etc. So let's keep going here. Interstellar says, the tempting thing about Reform portfolio is the NICOT NICNT. Yeah, fantastic set. And if you go to bestcommentaries.com, and I don't know if they average all of the sets, but bestcommentaries.com shows that the NICOT and the NICNT is the most highly rated set there is. So yeah, it's a really tempting one, no doubt about that. Uriah the Hittite was innocent, yet delivered over to death by the hands of the Gentiles by the betrayal of David. He was pierced by arrows outside the gate of the city. In all of this, we can see a type of Christ, who was likewise innocent yet delivered and then pierced with a spear. Okay, so that's how Uriah typifies Christ. Naboth refused to yield over his vineyard, the inheritance of his fathers, to Ahab. The king and queen of Samaria determined to kill the owner of the vineyard in order to take it as their own. Consequently, on an appointed holy day, 2 false witnesses were set before Naboth to charge him with cursing God and the king. Although he was innocent, Naboth was taken outside the city and stoned to death. In all of this, we can see a type of Christ, who was likewise zealous of his inheritance, the vineyard of his father. The religious leaders of Jerusalem, however, determined to kill him in order to take the vineyard for themselves. False witnesses were summoned against Jesus on a holy day, witnesses who charged him with blasphemy against God and the king. Although Jesus was likewise innocent, nonetheless, he was taken outside the city, killed, and buried in a tomb sealed with great stone. Wow, that was a struggle. Prosser says, I bought Reform Portfolio, but I realized it seemed kind of inbred, if you know what I mean. They got Standard Diamond. It seemed to help with the cross-pollination of ideas. Yes, if you have a limited budget, sometimes you may not want so much that emphasizes one specific tradition. So, Prosser, I appreciate that because I like to read broadly, and that's what you're indicating here. Now, there's some people who want the exact opposite. They don't want those broad works in their library. They want to focus in on a specific tradition, so that might be why they would go for Reformed. Yep, but very, very good point. So I'm probably not going to go along this route because it's not emphasizing David very much. Don't get me wrong, the Christ typologies are cool, but there's very little emphasis on David. It's mostly about springboarding from David to each of these quote-unquote victims. Uriah, Naboth, and John the Baptist. But I want to finish reading it because it's interesting. John the Baptist was taken and bound by Herod because he had challenged the lawfulness of Herod's marriage. Herod wanted to kill him, but was afraid because he knew John was a just man. But Herod's wife demanded the death of John. So Herod, perplexed but bound by the opinion of his guests, had John beheaded in the prison. Afterward, John's body was given to his disciples, who took it away and laid it in a tomb. In all of this, we can see a type of Christ, who was likewise taken in bonds. The chief priests and the scribes wanted to kill him, but they were fearful of a riot of the people. Pilate likewise knew that Jesus was a just man. He was perplexed, but bound by the opinion of the crowd, so he delivered Jesus over to be crucified. Afterward, Jesus' body was given to his disciples, who took it away and laid it in a tomb. We've seen how the story of David's sin is used as the pattern for the tragic fall of the royal house by an illicit murder of an innocent subject. So this is a key idea right here. And he says there are several features. Well, let's just click it. There are several features of the examples of biblical narrative tragedy we have observed that correspond to dramatic tragedy as understood by Aristotle in the Poetics. The lexical comparisons are not precise, of course, but their pervasive occurrence is generally instructive. Tragedy is the recounting, mimesis, of the action, muthos, of a royal house whose sin, hamartia, brings death. The actor is a federal head, and thus his crime has severe consequence for his kingdom. Tragic sin is a moral and not merely a mental lapse. It is usually takes place in an acropolitan palace, a setting that suggests prosperity and danger. It results in the gruesome murder, opsis, and it brings about a prophetic reckoning, nemesis. The effect of biblical tragedy and how it differs from classic Attic tragedy will be seen as we further explore its patterns melos. Very cool. But David's sin also provides the pattern of the pride that anticipates a royal fall. Once again, let's consider the sin of David from a slightly different perspective. We will then be able to see how the prophet David relates to another king who paralleled his rise and fall. So I'm not going to go further with this one because I've already decided not to use it. But very, very cool. And, you know, these are great studies. I really love Warren Gage. Okay, let's move down to the next one he notes. David's sin and the Ten Commandments. The account takes place in the springtime when kings should go forth to battle. The chronicler charges David with neglecting this royal responsibility by contrasting his sense of duty with that of Uriah, who forgoes the restful pleasures of his bed while the captain and the armies of Israel, as well as the sacred ark, are camped in the open field of battle. David's dalliance in Jerusalem itself contrasts with his leadership in the open field during an earlier phase of the Ammonite campaign, described in 2 Samuel 10, 17-19. It is clear contextually that Israel was not at rest from enemies, yet David had appointed his own Sabbath season. What's up, Edgemark? Good to see you. Welcome. How you doing? Happy Monday. The account of the fall of David begins with a violation of the Sabbath duty to labor in the season of work. David sees the daughter of Eliam in her bath and covets her, even after learning that she is also the wife of Uriah. The character of covetousness is idolatry, but David nonetheless sends for the woman and brings her up from Uriah's house. In doing this, he despises the word of God and sins against the only Lord God. He steals the wife of his neighbor and commits adultery with her. In doing so, David dishonors his father and mother, who had put a mark of the covenant of Abraham upon his own flesh. I think he's trying to point out that David broke all 10 commandments with this sin. So let's see. Violation of the Sabbath, 4th commandment. Covet, 10th commandment. Idolatry, 2nd commandment. Sins against the only Lord God, 1st commandment. Steals the wife.
Your life is not
9th.
in
Oh, come
your
on.
hands. Your life is in the hands of God.
On Edgemark just resubbed for 16 months. That's sweet 16 though.
That's sweet 16 though, indeed. Thank you, Edgemark. That's awesome. Thank you so much for all the love and support, man. Crazy support over the years. I appreciate it so much. God bless you, brother. Thank you. Yeah, so that's what he's doing. He's going through and he's explaining how David violates all 10 commandments. When the plan fails, David kills Uriah by the sword of the Ammonite. In all of this, the prophet Nathan charges David with having to give occasion to the enemies of God to blaspheme the name of the Lord. David's sin, considered analytically, illustrates the apostles' teaching that whosoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles at one point, he has become guilty of all. The same doctrine is evident when David's sin is considered synthetically as well. Moses required the future king of Israel to make a copy of the law and to keep it before him all the days of his life. It is instructive to consider the sin of David in the matter of Uriah's wife as it is contextualized for David out of the book of Moses. Let's begin by rehearsing the account of the fall of man. We will then consider the sin of Israel's king as it is compared to the similitude of Adam's transgression. I don't want to do this one either because it's not true to the spirit of Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11 is telling us to emulate the faith of David. And if we focus in on the Bathsheba incident, we're not following the authorial intent of Hebrews. Don't get me wrong, a full-orbed study on David would absolutely bring up the Bathsheba incident, but it's just not where I want to go here. So let's skip down until we get past the Bathsheba incident. Yeah, this is all about David's sin. Yeah, neat study, but it's just not where I want to go. Although this is a good line. We are left longing for some greater king to come. We are prompted to dream of a king who is greater than David, a king who would not defile the bride of the Gentile and then murder her husband, a king who in love would rather suffer defilement and death himself. By doing so, he could give life and restore purity to all his subjects, Jew and Gentile alike. So this might be a final idea. We might bring up the sin of David in like the conclusion, if that makes sense. What's up, Rosby? Good to see you. How are you doing? Happy Monday. I hope you're doing well. Cal Magic, how about some of David's Psalms of protection / thankfulness? Those would absolutely be relevant. Let's go take a look here. There's the Psalm, probably in our guides here. There's the Psalm Explorer. And the Psalm Explorer is pretty cool because what the Psalm Explorer does, oh, it's probably under tools. What the Psalm Explorer does is it can break down for you who writes them and all of the details about the Psalms. It's really, really neat. So here's a Psalm Explorer if you haven't seen it. This was, I think, a Logos 9 feature. So this is by genre, but I want to go by author. So you can see Psalms of David right here. Boom. And not only that, Cal Magic says of protection or thankfulness, right? So we have lament psalms, praise songs, hymns, royal psalms, wisdom, thanksgiving, and trust. So you could probably dial into like these. If you're looking for by author, Psalms of Trust, you've got a handful here, right? Or if you didn't want trust, then you can maybe do like Thanksgiving. And you can see these handful right here are focused on Thanksgiving. So we could absolutely potentially go this direction. And, you know, I haven't dealt with the Psalms in a really long time, so I think it'd be cool for the congregation. My one hesitancy is that people are expecting me in this Hebrews 11 series to deal with each character typologically. So I do want to exhaust those categories first before I run to do one of these. But the Psalm Explorer is fantastic for doing stuff like this. And you know what? Bruce has a good point here. My mind always goes to Psalm 51 and 32 when emulating David's faith, right? So let's take that down. You know, because the author of the Hebrews is telling us to follow in the footsteps of David, right? And if we go to our Psalm Explorer right here, we can see 32 is right there. That's pretty cool. So definitely worth thinking about. Appreciate your guys' support with those ideas. Can never have enough. Can never have too many ideas. Centripetal dynamic of the house of David. Yeah, I think this is just getting too much into the sin aspect. Yep. So I'm not finding anything from Gage that I want to preach on. Let's go ahead and try to find. Here's what I want to do. Let's go ahead and do a search in open books. All open books. And I also want large text or title text. Large text or heading text, excuse me. And let's just type David in. And we're specifically looking New Adam David. See, that's helpful. And then also David rejected, then exalted. Okay, these are two really intriguing ideas. And instead of Warren Gage, these are coming from James Hamilton. Okay, so these are two helpful motifs. Now, which one is in the section? Okay, so one of them comes from earlier in the book. The New Adam David comes from earlier in the book. So it might be worth digging into this concept. Because we could be talking about the Adam typology, Adam, David, Christ. Or we could do David rejected, then exalted. And it looks like he's doing this rejection, exaltation, and going to compare it to Christ as well. Because Christ, of course, rejected, exalted. I mean, this is a really cool motif. I'm leaning this direction. David rejected, then exalted. I'm leaning this direction, and the reason is because the Adam motif, Adam, David, Christ, that's helpful, but it's almost focusing more on Adam and Jesus, of course. Whereas David rejected, then exalted, we're focusing just on this theme or motif within the Davidic kingly narrative, right? So this is the direction I'm leaning right here. Let's read some of this and see what we get. And, you know, we don't have to decide yet, but Sunday is fast approaching. We want to make some sort of progress, right? So let's go ahead and read this and see what James Hamilton has to say. Those who operate within this interpretive matrix, informed by the promises and the patterns, interpret subsequent events from this perspective. This does not result, however, in an uninteresting, predictable course of events. Though it has happened repeatedly before because it goes against expectation, everyone is surprised by what happens when Samuel goes to anoint one of the sons of Jesse as king. The father, Jesse, was evidently so confident that David would not be God's choice, he didn't bother summoning him from the flock. And then, no sooner has another younger son been marked out as the one whom God accepts, like Abel, and the one with whom God will enter into the covenant, like Isaac, God's chosen, like Jacob, to reign, like Joseph, and deliver and lead, like Moses. But as noted above, his older brother answers him harshly in a scene starkly reminiscent of Joseph's father sending him to check on his older brothers. Once the newly anointed David has slain Goliath, his kinsman Saul begins to persecute him, initiating the period of suffering and difficulty in David's life narrated through the rest of 1 Samuel. I wonder if that maps onto Jesus and the temptation in the wilderness. Does Jesus slay Goliath when he succeeds in his temptation against Satan, and then he proceeds to be persecuted by Saul, i.e. the Pharisees, all of God's people? Get my last cup here of green. Established as king over Israel and Judah, David receives God's covenant promises. He then begins to expand the borders of the kingdom in every direction before his devastating sin with Bathsheba. Yahweh's judgment for this included his declaration that he would raise up evil against David out of his own house, portending Absalom's revolt, which causes a second period of massive suffering and difficulty in David's life. Rosby, is the Psalm Explorer standard in Logos 9? I think it is. I think it is standard in Logos 9. Prosser will come back, have to roll out 4 a.m. Very interesting way to gather wool for sermon prep. Almost like brainstorming. We'll like to listen to the finished result. Awesome, Prosser. Yep, just starting out here. You know, we'll see which direction I want to go. And then we can dive deeper once we get there. But when you start with such a broad theme like David himself, you know, there's just infinite possibilities. Appreciate you, Bruce. Take care. God bless you. And we'll catch you another time. Okay? Hope you enjoy playing back a little bit later. The suffering of the key figures who preceded David created the context in which he could have interpreted his own suffering as an installment of the same pattern. The narratives of David's suffering in Samuel then provide the historical backdrop for interpreting David's own descriptions of his suffering in the Psalms. I would suggest that David understood his own suffering as an installation in the pattern of those who had preceded him, chiefly Joseph and Moses, and that in the Psalms he presents himself as another installment in that same pattern. David does this because he expects the pattern to be fulfilled in the life of his descendant, his seed, whom God promised to raise up from his line, whose throne God promised to establish forever. Yeah, interesting. Against the claim that Bates makes about the lack of evidence of the earliest Christians had sufficient interest in the suffering of David so as to provide an imitative link, the authors of the New Testament quote the Psalms consistently and prominently. Bates claims that these quotations are not to be understood typologically and argues the case that in such cases as in Psalm 22, blah, blah, blah. Now, I agree with Hamilton. I was having this conversation with a friend. I agree with Hamilton about the typology. I do not agree with him about how it's derived. Okay? Hamilton essentially says typology is derived because the later biblical authors are copying the patterns of the earlier biblical stories. I don't believe that. Well, that might be part of it, but it's not the whole truth, if that makes sense. So, but he's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so if he wants to eviscerate Bates here, I have no problem with that. But I do think there's more to it than Hamilton essentially lets on. I think this has to do with metaphysics. I was sharing this with a friend of mine. I think metaphysical reality is actually built in such a way that the patterns keep happening, and that the Bible just happens to be reporting on the patterns that keep happening in history. Okay, so I put the metaphysical pattern as primary over the authorial understanding of what he's saying, if that makes sense. Slightly different hermeneutic, but arrives at very similar conclusions. The earliest church did not read this psalm as if it was really about David at the first level, but secondarily about Jesus at a second deeper level as he fulfilled the Davidic pattern of suffering while serving as a symbol of corporate Israel. There's little evidence the earliest Christians had much, if any, interest in this first level, and that is the principal mistake in how the significance of Psalm 21 in the Septuagint and other psalms featuring a righteous sufferer have been assessed for the earliest Christians by scholarship. On the contrary, the earliest church did not believe that this psalm was really about David's or corporate Israel's suffering, because they believed that David's significance here was his prophetic capacity, that he was a willing and able prophet who had taken on a character, and thus he had spoken in the prosopon of the future Christ, right? Good night, Prosser. Take care. God bless you. My Journey says, love the Psalm Explorer. Really cool. You could get lost in the Psalm Explorer. Very nice. What's up, Trebor? Been a minute. How are you? Hey, Pastor Chandler, I'm reading the Bible all the way through for the first time. Just finished the Old Testament today. I'm starting the New Testament tomorrow. So excited. Let's go. You knocked it out of the park. That's the hard part, Trebor. You should be able to crush the New Testament now. Fantastic. Well done, good sir. Well done. Keep up the good work, man. Awesome. Yeah, good reason to be excited for that. Cal Magic, the destruction of the serpent was attempted by Saul versus Naash, David versus Goliath, and ultimate success with Jesus in the wilderness, following the king motif, appointment, testing, coronation. This is helpful, Cal Magic. So, Cal Magic, are you saying I'm onto it when I say that Jesus being tempted in the wilderness is similar to Saul's persecution of David? Or would you say I'm a little bit off base because it should actually be tied to Goliath instead? Perfect. Happy to take that down. Really solid note. Thank you. All right. For Bates, the key question seems to be how the earliest church understood the psalm. I contend the key question rather is how the author of the psalm intended it to be understood, and in addition, how the final editors of the canonical form of the Psalter intended it to function. Interesting hermeneutical question. He's trying to prioritize authorial intent, which is consistent with grammatical historical interpretation. Bates may be correct that some individuals in the earliest church, not New Testament authors, understood Psalm 22 in the way he describes. When we consider the New Testament authors, however, again I contend that they have not disregarded what the Old Testament author intended to communicate. The New Testament authors do not claim to present different interpretations of the Old Testament texts, but fulfillments of what their authors communicated. To claim that David was not speaking of his own experience, but rather of the prosopon of Christ, is to offer an alternative interpretation. To claim that David spoke of himself and expected the pattern of his experience would be repeated in and climactically relived in the seat of promise is to offer fulfillment. I think I agree with that. Again, I'm not so tied to grammatical historical as he is, but I'm okay with the way he put it. Bates asserts the earliest church was not interested in David's historical suffering, and then he explains that the quotations that reference the historical suffering present David speaking in the prosopon of the future Christ. If, however, these quotations are interpreted in a typological rather than prosopological framework, then David's historical suffering and the meaning of the statements of the Psalms in context is affirmed, and the early church does in fact show quite a lot of interest in David's own suffering. Again, I don't know if I'd use exactly this language, but I'm a fan of his conclusions here. Bates' prosopological proposal disregards the Old Testament context and meaning of these statements. Typological understanding of the quotation of the Psalms in the New Testament, by contrast, would depend upon the meaning of the Old Testament text. In context, I kind of disagree here, but It's all right. Respecting that meaning and seeing it fulfilled in accordance with what the Old Testament author intended to communicate. Again, I just don't see the need to tie so rigidly to grammatical, historical, authorial intent interpretations here. I had a conversation with my friend this week. We believe in two authors of the Bible. Why do we stress so much the authorial intent of the human author? What really matters is the authorial intent of the divine author. But if they want to do this, it's fine. I just think it's an unnecessary step. I'm not mad about it, but I just don't see the need for it, if that makes sense, right? Cal Magic, sorry about the multiple posts. Twitch is buffering a lot of my end. Chat is not working very well. Have refreshed several times. Hey, no problem, Cal Magic. I got the message, which was important. The fact that it popped up multiple times is no big deal. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you. It's an important message. Thank you so much. The question is, which interpretive proposal seems more preferable? One that allows the meaning of the Old Testament text in context to be preserved and fulfilled, or one that disregards the Old Testament context and asserts an alternative interpretation with no basis in that context? Either are fine to me, so long... either are fine to me. But again, he has a dog in the fight of grammatical historical interpretation, so he wants to lean that direction. My conclusion on this matter will be obvious to anyone regarding this book. Yeah, he prefers the first. As I review some of the evidence regarding the righteous sufferer in the Psalms and the quotation of these passages in the New Testament, I will seek to say enough about the quoted statements in their Old Testament context to show how a typological understanding of their fulfillment allows the original meaning to stand and be fulfilled in Christ. Because I am interested in the meaning of the quoted statements from the Psalms in their context in the Psalter, I'll proceed in canonical order. Ah, man, this is getting much more academic than I wanted. I mean, this is cool stuff, but will it preach? This probably won't preach. He's getting into the question of, hermeneutic method here. And I can't preach hermeneutic method. Well, we're striking out here, guys. We're striking out. Yeah. Oh, this is good work. I got to read and reread James Hamilton when I get a chance. Great book. Yeah, I've only got a little bit of time left, and I'm going to use it to go through the new Adam David motif. Let's see if that one yields better results. Not really happy with the results of that one. Unfortunate, but he focused so much on hermeneutic method that I just can't preach it. Or I'm going to glean very little for preaching from it. Both Adamic sonship and corporate personality informs the promises God makes to David in 2 Samuel 7. These promises pertain to kingship, which will occupy our attention in chapter 5 below, which is where I just was. Here we are concerned with the way which God says to David through the prophet Nathan concerning David's connectedness and future king from his line to Adam. The context of the passage includes a number of pointers back to Adam and Abraham. The rest in 2 Samuel 7:1 recalls God's rest in Genesis 2:2-3. David's desire to build God a house also recalls the Lord's work at creation, building his own cosmic temple. The Lord's promise to make David a great name in 2 Samuel 7:9 recalls his promise to Abraham's name great in Genesis 12:2. When the Lord tells David he will raise up his seed, notes sound from the seed theme status that stems from Genesis 3:15 and continues through God's promise to Abraham and his seed. The associations with Abraham are strengthened by the next phrase from 2 Samuel 7:12, who will come from your body, the whole of which occurs in only one or other place in the Old Testament. So he's just noting all the typological links. This will work. The Lord promises, I will be a father, he will be a son. The sonship of the king from David's line means the king will reign as God himself would, blah, blah, blah. I mean, this is all good. This is actually better than the king chapter, because the king chapter is getting into details, where here he's giving it an outline, which is exactly what I want. Representative. Yeah. Kingship, Adam, all the good stuff. I would suggest that Psalm 8 attests to David's understanding of himself as a new Adam, king of Israel, vice-regent of Yahweh. Going forward, we see that the line of descent from Adam through Abraham, Judah, and David will culminate in the Son of God, the last Adam, the true Israel, the one who is the image of the invisible God. So what he's essentially doing here, if we want to go in this direction, still not exactly what I want. What he's essentially doing here, though, is he's describing what Davidic kingship actually means. Like, what's the significance of it? That's basically what he's giving us, which could be very helpful, but doesn't preserve exactly what I'm looking for. All right, guys. Well, we struck out in all of the standard resources we wanted to consult, but now we know not to look there for the final things. And look, we can always default. This is not going to be hard at all. We can always default to just kind of a stereotypical presentation of David, right? There's so much good stuff you could preach on David. So there's not a problem there. I was just hoping to get some deeper insight from some of the typological sources I'm aware of, and I just couldn't. I want to do one last thing, and I'm going to just look through my library looking for David in any of these monographs, or looking for any monographs that explicitly talk about David where I think they might hint at a typological sense. So let's go with title. And you would think a lot of books that would have what we're looking for would have David in the title, right? None of these are helpful. They're older. David, shepherd, psalmist, king. David's social drama, hologram in Israel's early Iron Age. Rabbi David Kimchi, that's not who we're looking for. That's an older one. David in Love and War, Pursuit of Power. David Hume, nope. David and His Theologian, Literary, Social, and Theological Investigations of the Early Monarchy. That might be helpful. Walt Brueggemann. From Samuel to David, David in the Psalms. David's Truth in Israel's Imagination and Memory. That's also Brueggemann. Looks like Brueggemann's done a lot of work on David. David, Developing a Heart for God. That might be helpful. 12 Studies for Individuals. David, King of Israel. David Remembered, Kingship and National Identity in Ancient Israel. Blenkinsop. Oops. The Life of David by A.W. Pink. I didn't know he did a writing on it. The Davidic Shepherd King in the Lucan narrative. That might be very helpful. This book might help us to link up David and Christ in a way that even the author's not necessarily intending. The Faces of David. That might be interesting. Davidic Messiah in Luke Acts, Promise and its Fulfillment in Lucan Christology. So this is two authors in a row now, Sarah Harris and Mark Strauss, linking up David and Luke. And looks like we've essentially exhausted the primary stuff we wanted to go into. There are isolated monographs here and there, but we've got Mark Boda for sure. That'll be a good resource. Good night, my journey. It's good having you here. I appreciate you very much. Cool. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll just make a quick bibliography on all open resources, and then I can throw those in my notes. I think it's here. I don't do this one often. New bibliography. David typology. And should be able to add all open resources. Done. And then I should be able to copy them. I'm so close. I know I could just export them to like a Word document and then copy them over, but this is good for now. Good for now. Oh, thank you, Cal Magic. I didn't check. I did not check James B. Jordan. So Cal Magic is telling us to check James B. Jordan, which is good. We will. We'll definitely check James B. Jordan. What's up, Angie? Good to see you. I'm sorry I'm closing out. I apologize for that. But yeah, it was really good to be with you guys this evening. I really enjoyed it. Thought it was a good stream. Went over an hour and a half. And we're going to be going into David. I just don't know where. So we'll find it out. We'll find it out. No worries. I appreciate you, Cal Magic. I'm going to throw this in my notes real quick. And we'll go from there. But yeah, I know we'll find something. There's going to be some good stuff. You know. And frankly, I'm excited that I didn't find just a slam dunk, because it means I'll keep researching. Angie, I was lurking. Okay, cool. I appreciate that, Angie. Awesome. Awesome. Very good. Very good. Yeah, we'll check that out when we get a chance. Trebor, so when you say you wanted to look through your library, have you read all those sources at one point or just sources you trust? No, I certainly haven't read all those sources. You know, I know a lot of people like to separate sources they trust out from sources they don't. But for me, I have a pretty broad awareness of most worldviews. And so I dig into all sources. I'm not worried about ones that are consistent with, say, Reformed Baptist perspective. So that's not a recommendation I give to everyone, but for me, that's how I kind of function. So when I do my research, I just go wherever I want. So I don't know if that helps, but that's kind of my perspective. All right, you guys are amazing. I appreciate you all so much. Lord willing, we're going to be streaming again this week. So keep a lookout. I know I've only streamed like once a week for the last little bit, but we're trying to go, again this week, because there's just a lot of data to dig through and a lot of topics for us to look into. And yeah, I just got more information. So hopefully we'll see you guys again later this week. Appreciate all the love and support, and we'll catch you again very soon. Okay, take care. God bless. Bye.